Well, I guess since we're just meeting now for the first time face to face,
Yes.
yeah, and maybe for podcast listeners who are just tuning in to me for the first time and obviously meeting you for the first time,
Hmm.
I am in New Orleans. I'm a mental health counselor, provisionally licensed. So I'm not, this is a career change for me. And I am a massive horror movie fan. And so those are my two passions in life. And so that's why I started this podcast to blend my two favorite things, horror movies and mental health. And recently, well, not recently, I guess I've kind of been on my own spiritual journey. And this is some of the things I think I told you maybe when I reached out to connect to you. Oh gosh, I gotta say, I'm a little bit nervous. So,
No,
because I'm
no,
just
no, no, don't be, please.
I'm a little nervous, just to be completely honest, because I'm a little bit fanning out over here. Um, yeah, so,
That's
I
really sweet. There's no need to be nervous. It's lovely to meet you. I'm so looking
thank
forward to having a chat.
thank you so much. I'm so excited about this, to be honest. I found you through your tarot deck, and
Hmm.
as I've come into my spiritual journey, I was experimenting with tarot, and I found your tarot deck, and this deck just really spoke to me in a way that no other tarot deck really had. And just as I don't even know if I'm able to vocalize this very well, as I was continuing on my spiritual journey and really connecting with my ancestors and really bringing ancestors in on my own healing journey, I started feeling like part of my guides came in the form of these magical creatures.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And then I saw the movie Fréwaka, which I've already started a series on that, really, because that movie
Mhm.
really talks really the themes of that movie is generational trauma, but then it also brings in can you please say this out loud for me too? Because I really don't wanna mess up the name.
Of course. So it's the tarot of the she.
Okay.
She.
I've been saying "she" because you have this really beautiful pronunciation in the book, and so I've been saying "she," so it's so good to hear you say it out loud because I've heard it
Yes,
s
there you go. I'm happy to validate you.
Thank you, yes.
You can tell when people haven't read the book because I'll see people post videos about it and they go, "Here is the tarot of the Sidhe," and I'm like, "Oh no."
Yes.
So
Okay, that
thank
makes me
you for reading the book. Um, I appreciate you.
That's why I invited you here because this definitely ties into my larger series on Fréwaka because the she show up in this horror movie that I'm just really, really connected with, really
Wow.
loved. I know I'll have some questions about how maybe right or not right this movie got it as we maybe talk on this podcast a bit more. But, with all that being said, all right, I feel like I got my nerves.
I'm going to say, I mean, straight off, arguably, they're getting a lot right if it speaks to you and resonates somehow with you and has helped you on your journey. So whether or not folklorically or mythologically, it's technically correct. Experientially, it's given you a gateway into an experience of the she, which is valid, I would say. So that's straight off the bat. I'd like to say that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And that's another thing I'll say, Emily, is reached out to you because of your absolutely gorgeous tarot deck and the meaning it has made for me. But then, well, I'll let you tell everybody about yourself. But
Lord.
I was like, oh my gosh, you are so busy and you have such this resume. But please, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Oh gosh. I mean, it gets very difficult when people want to talk about everything that I do, because
I
normally
know.
if people interview me, it's normally about either tarot and the spiritual side of things, or about my theatre work, or about movies. It's not often that somebody's just like, tell me everything about yourself. I'll try and be concise.
That's okay.
I mean,
Whatever speaks to you. No pressure.
well, it's all important to me. So I work primarily as an actor and a theatre maker. So currently at the moment, I'm very busy in a lot of immersive theatre. So the two main shows I'm currently working on are the Key of Dreams. I'm wearing my own merch at the moment, which is a 24-hour immersive Lovecraftian folkloric horror experience where people come to a Jacobean manor in Wales for 24 hours and explore mysteries. I'm one of the lead characters in that. We've got more shows coming up in December, so that's very
Great.
exciting. Um, my main bread and butter job at the moment, which is also a great deal of fun, is Bridge Command, which is an immersive sci-fi experience in London, where you learn how to fly a starship and go on adventures. So that's essentially my paycheck at the moment, which is, delightful. I'm a starship captain for a living.
Gosh,
I have been in a few horror movies as well, so some of your podcast listeners may be interested in that.
absolutely.
The ones that people will have seen would be maybe Ghost Stories, where I played Martin Freeman's dead wife, and then the upcoming Return to Silent Hill, which is finally coming out in January. Good Lord. We've been waiting for that one. I'm also known for my sort of the theatre work that I make. So I've done a few interactive Shakespeare shows. So some people know those because those have toured internationally. And then, as you quite rightly brought up, tarot decks. So I have a few tarot decks that I've created and also wrote the books for. So that's Tarot of the She, the Transparent Tarot, which is designed to be read in layers, the Transparent Oracle, which is a sister deck to that one, and various other things. And I've written some books as well, mostly about fairy, but also about the magic of Shakespeare. So I have an MFA in staging Shakespeare, so Shakespeare and magic is a big thing. And I've also co-led a course with the wonderful Sidhe on the goddess Hecate called the Torchlit Path, which we hope to revive, hopefully at some point next year. So Hecate is a big influence and inspiration and part of my life. I think that's probably enough.
Actually, you're a creative soul. You're a creative spirit for a living.
Yes, I'm very fortunate to be able to be so just about.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, that's wonderful. I gotta say, Emily, I have a lot of listeners and a lot of friends that live in the UK. So can you tell us, and I gotta say, the community that I belong to, we love supporting other creatives. And so could you say more about where the Key of Dreams and your show in London is? Because I would love to help
Certainly.
some folks out.
Certainly I can, but most of our guests, most of our audience for Key of Dreams are like from the States. People
Really?
travel over for it. It's one of those things. But you can find the Key of Dreams website at www.thekeyofdreams.co.uk, I think it is. Just Google Key of Dreams Immersive and you'll find it. The house itself that takes place in is very near Monmouth in Wales, but people travel from all over the world for that. It's a very unique thing. Very special. London, though, Bridge Command is in Vauxhall in London, just under the Arches. And if you're a fan of sci-fi at all, highly recommend it. I'm not always there, obviously, but I play Captain Athena Hamilton. And if you're lucky, you may get me as your training officer. Or I may indeed be a swing and pop up as some strange mad scientist or other. But it's a lot of fun. It's a couple of hours experience, that one. As soon as you arrive, it's fully immersive with interactive, gorgeous sci-fi starship sets and a bar with some fabulous cocktails. So yes, highly recommend Bridge Command as well.
Absolutely. Joe, Umba, Nahid, Verity, you heard this.
Especially one for Star Trek fans. It's not Star Trek, but it's not Star Trek, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
It's really a treat if you're a big sci-fi nerd like I am.
That's amazing. Yeah, and another person in my community is a big fan of Shakespeare. I know
Great.
my listeners are gonna be so excited to listen to hear all this. So it's just something for everybody in my community. So this is so exciting. Yeah, like I said, I could talk to you all day, but I'll try to focus in. So I know that I was so curious to just really learn a little bit more about the she from you today. Because you wrote this really beautiful companion guide to the tarot deck that I have, and I just would love to know what your connection is to the she, and what inspired you to write this deck.
Well, when I was a child, and I had, I suppose, a very rudimentary understanding, but a child's understanding of whatever you may consider fairy beings were, I would have dreams where I would go through a hole in the, that doesn't sound quite right, a hole in the ground. Basically, I would dream that there was a hill in my garden with a door in it that was ajar and that there was a light behind it. And I could go through that door and down into the ground. Now, I think at that point I'd not read anything about the sheep being in the hollow hills or anything of that ilk, but I had these very vivid dreams about going on missions for these beings. So if my face is lighting up now, it's because I'm by the sea and the sky is doing incredible things while we are talking. So all of the sky here is black and stormy, And then just as the sun is coming down, it's blazing through the clouds. So there's this golden light shining through as I'm talking about the she. So I've just gone completely blind, but over here it's completely dark.
It's so funny, Emily. There's so many serendipities. The first couple podcasts I did on Fréwaka,
Mm.
unpacking some of the trauma themes around Fréwaka. My buddy Neil I did that podcast, but the same thing happened. The sun just randomly came out and blared as we started talking about the movie. And then also have this running
Amazing.
theme of the key that just randomly because these there's these the keys. This was my mother's, which is also plays into this ancestral and then generational themes that show up in Fréwaka. And
Mm.
then you had your key today. So there's some serendipitous moments happening right now.
And the key is, of course, one of the symbols of Hecate, who no doubt we will get onto at some point.
I'm
So,
so
so
excited.
that was my first experience of the she with these dreams that I had, which then was sort of corroborated much later on when I started to read more about Irish mythology, about Celtic myth in general. I was raised a very half-assed Catholic, a very sort of not terribly committed Catholic, but I went to Catholic schools, and one side of the family were quite Catholic. My parents not so much. But there was a sense of ritual and everything else. But I very quickly sort of realized from enforced mass at schools and things that the way to spirituality was not believe whatever you're told to believe and recite whatever is rammed down your throat from an early age. I knew that there was something, and I felt that there was some answers somewhere, or even just that the search for answers was the point. But I was very disturbed by the tendency of people to just puppet what they were told, you know. And this search sort of led me to alternative spirituality as a late teenager, especially when I moved away from home for the first time when I went to drama school. So always for me, the exploration of art and theatre was side by side with the exploration of spirituality. These two things are inseparable for me and always have been, because my acting process is a very, I think, one of channeling and spirit as well. And during that time at drama school, which was in the middle of the beautiful Yorkshire countryside, a place called Bretton Hall, I would start to spend much to the lament of my drama tutors, a lot more time in the nature reserve surrounding the drama school, just being there and really connecting with the spirits of the land, the spirits of the trees there, the spirits of that place. And I felt like I learned a lot during that time. There was also a magic shop called Pentagram, which was in a basement underneath a clothing shop called Morgana in Wakefield, which was our nearest sort of town. And I'd spend a lot of time in there reading dubious books and hanging out with various people. But that's when I really started to practice and connect. And I think during those early experiences in my early 20s, and I became very disillusioned with some of the human teachers that were on offer to me at the time. I found the real authentic truths came from simply spending as much time in nature as possible and being open and listening, not only with the mind, but especially with the heart, an empathic connection with those spirits of place. So that's where I started.
That's so lovely, Emily. Thank you for sharing your personal journey. And it so much feels parallel in a lot of ways to mine. Was raised in I mean, I'm from Louisiana. I'm living in Louisiana, but I'm from Alabama. So I was raised in a Southern Baptist, Christian faith. And I stopped believing that probably in my teens and really didn't believe in anything. I started coming into my spirituality to some extent through my trauma healing work. So around I guess like into my 20s, early 30s through a 12-step program. It was called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And so it's a different type of 12-step program than, like a AA, but similar themes and where they ask you to, believe in something higher than yourself. And for me, that was hard because I was like, well,
Mm.
religion's a no-go for me. And so I started my journey then. And then I connected with some ladies a couple years ago who really started helping me understand to just exactly kind of what you're talking about, just tuning in with your intuition and just see what happens. And that started really helping me connect to organically to just nature and the land. And then I had this really, I will say, beautiful experience where I feel like I got visited by ancestors. And then I really feel supported by these really, really, really old ancestors that
Like the
really,
deep ancestors.
yes, like deep ancestors. So I feel like my guides are my grandmother. So like that immediate generation, but then like really, really old ancestors. And so I think again, that's when I found your tarot deck. I was like, oh, there's something about this that feels really familiar. And when I get into a dark or place where I need some help, it's often these beings are like that come in this form that are very she-like that I'm like, ooh, this feels comforting. It feels natural. And of course, I was like, there's something here. And so I have no formal knowledge. This is all just very intuitive, and I just keep stumbling into things that just keep making sense to me. And even what you're saying right now, just like, yeah, this makes sense to me. And
Oh,
so,
I'm so glad.
yes, and I just love connecting with people like you, and then my friend, other people, other kindred spirits out there that have had these experiences because it feels validating.
Yes, always. It's always good to be able to just share, not necessarily compare, but connect through experiences, through shared experiences. It's very validating when you find that somebody has had similar experiences to you or feels similarly about things. I think that community, which is now obviously a global thing, empowered by connections like this, is so important so that we don't feel alone when we do have what are very idiosyncratic beliefs.
Absolutely. One of my special focuses as a therapist is trauma, and it's the thing I keep saying. I mean, people who are regular listeners to this podcast are probably like, "Man, I hear this nonstop." But yeah, I'll just say it again. One of the I will say the remedies to trauma is community. Is coming out of isolation and feeling like you're not alone. And exactly what you're saying, feeling like you can find people that you're safe with and you have these commonalities with, and it can even be healing to connect with people that you don't, to be able to make
Oh, I
repair and
completely
find
agree.
commonalities with people that you don't. So.
Absolutely. Connection is the answer, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious about something, Emily, to kind of tie this into Fréwaka, the movie. I will say one thing I was a little bit surprised about in this movie is the she were quite naughty in this movie.
Okay.
So I know my experience of the she from again my own personal experiences is I find them very comforting and I find them very guide-like, in these moments of needing some extra support. But in
Hmm.
the movie Fréwaka, they basically come in and they're taking people away to this realm. In fact, in one of the moments in the movie, one of the main characters calls their realm the house under the house,
Mm.
and she's got this really beautiful old home, and it's Irish. Oh, the director, all the actors, it's all Irish. They speak Irish. I don't know anything, but it feels pretty legit. I mean, it's all by Irish cast, Irish directors, but they take someone on their wedding day. There's this mythology in the movie where the she show up around important events like marriage, death, and births, I think.
Hmm.
And then they return her because they make a deal to take her daughter, and then they come back to claim her at some point later in the movie. That's just like a really high level synopsis. And so much of the movie is just trying to ward off the she from coming to take her
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what your take on that might be because that feels when I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, that feels a little bit kinda." I know that's feels very black and white language, negative, I guess, compared to what my personal and I go, "This is a movie," but
It's interesting, isn't it? Well, so folklore does have a lot of these tales of the dangers of dealing with, let's say, fairy beings in general. Before we specifically talk about what we might be calling the she, there's a lot to unpack here. So yes, that sounds very authentic to folklore. And I will say to spiritual practice, when you start to deal with fairy beings, there are some who wish to work with us and we will work with them. There are things that they can do that we cannot. There are things that we can do that they can't. So we form a collaboration. We work together. And so there are some of these beings that are willing to collaborate. Some would prefer to remain hidden, and some would like to eat our faces. And I think it's very important to develop discernment when dealing with any kind of spiritual path, any kind of otherworldly beings, to remember that much like in nature, they're not all your friends, you know. Nature is not your special friend. Nature is incredible. Nature is powerful. Nature provides. Nature will also rip your life away in a second. And I think that's very important for anybody on any kind of spiritual path, that by its very nature, it's one of the strengths that it's not laid out for you like a religion, like an organized religion, but you do have to then find the path for yourself. And that path can be full of briars. It often is a thorny, thorny path. So yeah, remember that that rose has thorns. Those white and red roses of fairyland have their thorns. So yeah, so folklore is full of these tales of people being taken by fairy, both men and women. A literal interpretation of that is valid, that they are dangerous. They can be very dangerous beings to deal with, and that they are known for taking people into their realm for years and years and years and years. Time runs differently there, so you may have been there for what felt like not a very long time. Years have passed. 7 years is sort of the traditional time. There's another way of interpreting these tales as well, which is an initiatory path. And I would say both are valid. I think it's very valid to respectfully always deal with fairy beings, with the sheep, because they are powerful. Like, you wouldn't just go up to any stranger on the street even and expect them necessarily to help you. Some will help you, some will hinder you, some will want nothing to do with you. If you believe in the reality of this, it's the same with these beings. um, whose realm sort of intersects with our own, but is not our own. Now, if we take an initiatory viewpoint, especially if you look at the ballads of the borders up in Scotland, things like Thomas the Rhymer, these tales of people being taken into fairy for a certain amount of time and what they experience there on their journeys, the river of blood, the river of tears, the red and the white, the polarity and the balance between these things, waters of forgetting, and so forth. There are things detailed in these ballads and in these tales which give you important wisdom and details for those who have eyes to see it, on how to be initiated onto the path of fairy. So it's speaking symbolically and metaphorically, but as is very typical for fairy, it's layered. You know, this is also something to be taken as a warning that the she are powerful and dangerous, as well as wise and beneficial, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Oh, it makes so much sense, Emily. I love that you drew the parallel to nature. Even as I was trying to explain this out loud, I was like, "Ooh, that feels very black and white. That doesn't feel right." But it's nuanced, right? I think nuance
It is.
is, it's like things can be beautiful and they can be healing and they can be all these things, and it can be destructive because all with all things a purpose. And
Toxic positivity is the bane of many current spiritual movements.
oh, absolutely. Thank you for that reminder.
Well, I mean, you must especially know that dealing with trauma, because
Yes,
it doesn't help anybody's trauma to be like, no bad vibes here. We've got to go into the dark places, right?
exactly.
We have to acknowledge the darkness. We have to integrate our shadow selves and find our strength there. I mean, speaking of back to the tarot, actually, think about the strength card in tarot. That's not talking about physical strength. It's talking about the spiritual strength to be able to integrate, acknowledge, look in the eyes and integrate that beast, whatever that is for our individual selves, whatever it is, whatever our demon is, to see it and love it and acknowledge it and tame it through integration, not through conquering of will and physical strength.
Even as you're talking about that, that brought up a part in me that feels very anxious because when I think of like that, like it makes me think of vulnerability to be able to go there and do that. And it's because I'm not the type of person that is confrontational or that, that has this nature to just, like you said, dominate or conquer. So strength is
Mm.
not about that. It is about the flip side of that is having that vulnerability, having that self-awareness of being able to own both sides of that, of those
Gosh.
vulnerabilities.
Yes, vulnerability is strength.
Absolutely.
It's I think part of an unfortunate symptom of the patriarchy and that sort of dominant physical strength being lauded so much. To be truly vulnerable is the only way really to self-knowledge, and self-knowledge really is strength, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To deny it is delusional, I think. Having previously had a partner who was like, "I can't ever afford to be vulnerable. I can't be seen as being weak." It's like, gosh, you so missed the point, my friend.
It's costing connection to be able to do that. That makes me feel really sad for them
Yeah,
instantly
yeah,
and for that relationship. Well, I
yeah.
hope they're doing okay.
No, they're dead now. Never mind.
Oh my.
Unfortunately, yes, very sadly, we were never able to really find closure with that whole situation. But
Yeah.
we split about 11 years ago, and sadly, he died a couple of years ago of cancer, as it happens. But I hope that in his last years he found some sort of way into acknowledging and accepting vulnerability. He had a lot of the aspects of himself. So yes, sorry to
Yeah.
drop that one in there, but I do have a very dark sense of humor as well. So it's like, oh, I hope he's doing okay. Nice.
No, don't be
He
okay.
did.
Honestly, the more authentic and vulnerable on this podcast, it's what's you're comfortable with. And so honestly, thank you for sharing that because it's life, you
Gosh,
know.
I'm a chronic oversharer. Don't doubt it. Really.
I am too, Emily, I am too. I and I'm a therapist. I love hearing I mean, God, love. Give me all your stories, you know. But that's life.
It
That's
is, but it's what I love as an actor as well. I mean, people laugh at me, but love me for it. That as an actor, I'm like, give my characters more trauma. Give me all those juicy characters. I've played several different versions of Hamlet. My character in The Key of Dreams has been described as Cthulhu Hamlet. It's when we get into the trauma and the darkness and the depth of things and the vulnerability that we really are experiencing what it is to be human.
yeah.
And if we're not here to experience what it is to be human, what are we here for? So, as an
Ex
actor, that's my privilege to be able to take humanity to the extremes of our experience and to take people on that journey that they may not necessarily feel that they can in their everyday lives.
I'm just in awe, honestly, Emily, that this is how you're serving the world in this way to be able to emanate that and show this vulnerability and just radiate just this full spectrum of humanity.
Well,
Really, and
in a
that's
small way, in a very niche way, but
but I can't tell you, that's why I do this podcast, and this is why, you know, my community, why horror means so much to us, and I know that your experiences goes beyond horror, but, you know, it's included, is finding those themes in horror that connect to us on a human level, that we see ourselves in, we can connect to, that
yeah.
really bring those parts out in ourselves, and, this is called The Exorcist Within because I fully believe that we are capable of healing, and we can exorcise those demons in ourselves with the help of
Catharsis, right?
Exactly, exactly, and I think that, having actors and movies and art is so important to the process, so thank you for what you do, honestly.
Thank you. I do think it's essential, and I think it's a terrible shame. I don't know about. Well, I mean, no, bloody awful things are happening in your country. In terms of cuts to the arts, it really pains me that often when cuts are made in schools, it's to drama and to the arts, because what we need in this world now, more than ever, is more empathy and
Yeah,
connection. And that's what theatre, film, the arts does for us. It should not be underestimated, the power of that.
100%.
And I think it's a terrible shame that horror as a genre is so often overlooked or looked down on, because really horror provides us with the ultimate catharsis, the ultimate opportunity to delve into the darkness and see who we are when we face that, when we look into the void and into our fears and face them. That's when we find out who we really are, what we're really made of, right?
100%, absolutely. Either from a safe distance on the movie screen or, you know, from having conversations about it with other people and really diving in, unpacking what that means to you and how it connects to you, which is what we do on this podcast and why I did not start out in my life as a creative. Well, I started out because back when I was in school, it was STEM, 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 which is great. We need that. We need the science, technology,
Oh god,
engineering.
yeah, absolutely. It'll be science that saves us ultimately from the mess
Sure.
that we've got
Absolutely.
ourselves into. No
Absolutely.
mistake there.
Yeah, I started out with a career in engineering, which when I got to that moment of wanting to go to college, I wanted to go to school for creative writing, but my dad specifically was like, "Absolutely not. You're going for engineering." And here I am a decade later in my life, really thinking about what my calling was. And when I
Mm.
actually made a choice of what I wanted to do for myself, I chose mental health counseling. But I've just always needed a creative outlet. And, I've had that through the years and, whatever, painting, draw, whatever it is. But then
Mm.
this podcast, I started this about 4 or 5 months ago, so this has been a really nice creative outlet, but again, I just think it's been so good just to be able to connect with people and then people that's this has been able to people who have watched the episodes and been able to connect to something in it and having people like you come on, and it's just been so magical for me. And again, what I've always said in these episodes is if no one watches it, that's fine because it's for me, at the end of the day, so I'm getting something out of it, but if I can share with other people too, that's great.
Everybody needs an outlet because creativity is the language of the soul. And if we lose that, we lose touch with ourselves. I think it's sad. So many people just think, it's go get a job, make money, I don't know, have a family, whatever,
Yeah,
and never necessarily travel anywhere or explore themselves even. Life is this precious brief gift, and I just want to squeeze the juice out of it as much as possible.
absolutely. Same here. You said something earlier, Emily, that I wanna circle back to, if that's okay. You said that whenever you embody characters, that's really important to you to really get in there.
Mhm.
How do you recover whenever you really embody these characters and you really live their traumas and you live their experiences? What is that like for you?
It can be really tough, actually. It varies because often you get to take that full arc, and that full arc has catharsis to it. It's weirdly better for me if they die at the end, like Hamlet, for instance, and you die, it's like an immense relief. And Hamlet's death to him is such a relief at the end. The rest is silence. That's what you're looking for. But if in something like The Key of Dreams, actually, where the ending is voted on by the audience, whoever gets chosen to have a particular moment at the end, I don't want to spoiler it at all in case people come along. But if I don't quite get that last moment of that journey, I have to take myself off into the woods. Again, it's nature.
Mhm.
And I just have to release that character back into the ground and just back off. Because ultimately, it feels a bit like a channeling. Like this, especially with, I'm going to go off on a few tangents here, I'll bring it back. Especially with Shakespeare, when these characters are almost archetypes, they've been performed so many hundreds, thousands of times by actors around the world, and you step into a stream and it carries you. You step into a current, but you also bring yourself to it. So whatever it is that energy is, you're filtering it through your own experiences, your own psychological filters, and yourself and your own personality, and you're getting right in there, and you're making this incredible alchemy to create an authentic character from all of that is uniquely your interpretation. But it's a kind of a channeling, and then you've explored all of that, and that journey comes to an end, and then you can let it go. But with some of the work that I do, you don't quite get that satisfying ending. And where is that coming from? Because those characters are I've kind of created as well, but then I feel like they're taking me over. And I think that process, it's getting into all of those unexplored parts of my life, all the choices that were not made, the choices that could, like if I had dealt with certain things badly, if certain things had happened to me, if I'd gone that way, if I was that kind of, to get right into the soul of it and bring up these other things and manifest them fully as a human being that people can interact with and yes, fully embody that. And it's powerful, and it's a word I use a lot. It's juicy,
Mhm.
and sometimes you do feel parts of them stay with you.
Sure.
I don't know how healthy that is, but in some ways it's, it's somehow processing the world in a different way. It's like, oh, let's see the world through these eyes, and I'm just hungry for that experience and living life in the incredibly intense way that is not generally possible or acceptable in everyday society.
Yeah.
But then yes, so to let that go, I will take a walk out in nature, be it in the woods or by the sea where I live. The sky is still doing spectacular things. I wonder if I can show you at all. Hang on, let me see.
I would love to see it.
I don't know whether you can see any
Oh,
of
it's
this.
absolutely beautiful. I can see it. So beautiful.
Occasionally, I'm just looking above my laptop. It's because the sunset's happening right now, and it's gorgeous. And I just have to let them go because much as I enjoy the intensity and the adrenaline and the soul-searing love, loss, trauma, anguish, staring into the void, and you can't sustain that on a daily basis. Sometimes you just got to get your pajamas on and have a cup of tea. Yeah, just it's the same as you would if you were doing any kind of magical work or anything. You just kind of ground yourself. And I remember that if I don't ground myself, then my work is not going to be grounded either when I come back to it.
Hmm.
Like any good story, you have to start from a place of safety and groundedness. So, but also I feel like I can pull on those characters and draw on them if I need to in my own life or anything. For example, Bridge Command, I play a character, Captain Athena Hamilton, who is very by the book and very organised and very disciplined. Not very much like me. And so if I'm lying around and I'm like, oh, I don't know whether I can be bothered to do this thing, I can have that little voice in my head saying, come on, what do you think you're doing? Sort yourself out, get yourself up, get yourself together. You've got work to do. And it's like, damn, they're right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a collected therapist, but I do, one of my very types of modalities of therapy is called internal family systems or parts work, which essentially believes that we're all made up of parts, right? So part of me feels like this, part of me feels like that. And so it sounds like that you're tapping into the different parts of yourself and you're actually able to give them an experience through your different characters. So maybe part of you didn't get to have a certain experience or maybe didn't get to act something out or play something out in your own life
Mm.
and be reparative because you get to do that through your work. And then, you said something at the beginning that sometimes you even get to keep some of those characters with you. And you said, "Oh, I don't know if that's healthy or not," but it sounds like it is because some of your parts learn from those characters, like Athena. Like, oh, Athena, like there's a part of you that has learned from Athena. It's like, all right, I'm gonna use that information that I learned from Athena. I'm gonna be a little more motivated today. And so I think that's so beautiful.
Oh, I think so. Don't get me wrong, it's been a journey. Certainly when I first sort of started to make my own work. So I took a long break from acting when I had my child. He was now 22. Lord help me. But and, so I that's when I created all my tarots and wrote books and so forth during that gap of about 11 years. When I came back to it, I think I was so hungry for that, for what it was to embody a role and experience these intensities. I found it really difficult to let go of. And especially with the solo work and things that I was doing, I would carry that sort of the pain with me a bit. So it's been a process. This is a hard one, hard wrought state that I've come to now, and it's by no means perfect. There are some times when, especially for Key of Dreams, as I'm sure you can imagine, when you embody a character in an immersive environment where you're being responsive and improvising in character, and you have to be fully embodied for that 24 hours, you can imagine that can be difficult to shake off.
I can
Because they're
imagine.
very charismatic and compelling and, the dark, tortured occultist character. There's a lot in there that's snacky, it's tasty. It can be difficult to shake it off, but I hope I've got to a point where I'm at least relatively healthy.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination. We learn to get there. Even as a therapist, it's something that you said is something I always try to remember is, we gotta take care of ourselves before we can take care of other people. You gotta take care of yourself before you can take care of that character, that role. And to grow every time. We learn a little bit every time.
Exactly, exactly. I'm just going to very quickly take a photograph of this with the sunset behind. And
Great.
so when I post on social media that we've been doing, this looks great. And I can't wait to show you this later. So I just very quickly took a little snap of
It was
the sky and Poseidon.
It's so beautiful. It reminds me of two of the tarots that I relate to the most is well, I'll put it in your terms, the makers and the dancers, the earth and the water. I'm a Scorpio in astrology, so definitely water sign. And then
No
also
wonder
just
you want to get right into those dark emotional trauma places.
take me straight there. Oh, I'm yeah, emotional all the way. And then just finding so much healing in the earth. And so as soon as she showed me the water, I was like, ooh, just that was just even the image of it was just soothing to my soul.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here with this view of the sea. I only get back here a couple of days a week now. I'm in London most of the time, and I stay with my. Thankfully, my partner lives in London. But to come home and just straight out onto the sea is an incredible gift. So
Yeah.
lucky. It's different every day.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
That's wonderful. Can I circle back to another question that you
Mm,
earlier? So,
that is great.
I'm just finding so many parallels in your experience, the way you embody yourself as a actor and how it relates to my work as a therapist, but also how that is so healing for all the community in our movies. It's all so relevant. You were talking about the she and how they're nuanced characters and how that parallels nature. And how can we respect the she? What can we do to honor and respect the she?
Wonderful. I think at this point I'd like to touch on how we define. I mean, it's human nature to want to try and define things. So first of all, there are many different kinds of fairy being, and there are nature spirits and spirits of place, and
Okay.
these are not the same thing, although we may experience them in very similar ways because the way that we experience beings that resonate to a different frequency from us is going to be very similar. And there's a lot of work, probably including my own, that does have a bit of overlap there.
Thank you for this because I am so blind to all of this. This is give us all the information.
You get into it and it gets complicated, and
Mhm.
you've got folklore, mythology, you've got, real visionary experiences, and a lot of things can seem to be contradictory because they often are. And so I think something I say, possibly in the accompanying book to Tarot of the She, and certainly in other books on fairy that I've written, is that trying to capture the meaning of what fairy is, trying to define fairy is like trying to capture liquid light in a
Mm.
glass vessel. It's very
Oh,
difficult. But one of the ways that we can respect them is to do our best to understand what their nature is and to learn and experience them authentically rather than putting our own feelings about what they should be onto them. Another is to honour and respect the land that we walk upon, the land that
mm.
they once walked on and would very much love to walk on again. And another is a very simple way if one wants to engage in devotional work is offerings. Offerings can be creative tasks or environmental tasks or food and wine offerings and places of power. So find, if you can, I know a lot of people live in cities and can't get out of those cities, find a place that for you is where these worlds overlap, a place where you feel their presence more, where you feel that you can plug into that energy. And that might be somewhere that you would leave offerings, if not food and wine or beer or mead or whatever, but even song and dance and things like that. I write about it a fair bit in my book, Seeking Fairy. There are some exercises and ideas in there, as well as stories and things from folklore that people might find helpful.
I'm making a list, Emily. I'm adding that to the list on top of the transparent tarot.
And yes, so be informed. Don't come with expectations or prejudices, and form your own connection. And also, the ancestors are tied into this as well. Sometimes ancestors and the she will be seen to cohabit similar spaces. If we do shamanic underworld journeys, you will sometimes encounter she and the ancestors alongside each other. And in Irish mythology and Scottish and other Celtic mythology, you'll often find that fairy beings and the dead are very closely associated. Not the same, but occupying a similar space. They can sometimes be confused. And fairy beings in stories of encounters are often seen in clothes that predate a couple of centuries to the world we're in now. But yes, in terms of respect, remember that they are not here to be your little helpers, as some spiritual teachers might have it. They are not small, diminutive beings. They are powerful. They are luminous. They are the guardians of the inner world. And if we are fortunate, they may connect with us and work with us. And if they are unfortunate, then we better be careful.
Mhm. Yes, like the cautionary tale in Fréwaka.
I just feel the need to add honesty, be truthful.
Please.
I would say if you make promises with them, you better be sure to keep them. Honor and truth. Those are two very important qualities to have, not just in your practice, but in every aspect of your life. If you don't have them in every aspect of your life, it's hypocritical. A lot of people talk about the fae, the fairies, the Sidhe as being tricksters, but those aspects are true, yes. But a lot of the hurt that has happened between humanity and the Sidhe is due to our inability to keep promises and our lack of ability to access the truth of our hearts and give that. So an open-hearted truthfulness, and there is something written in the grimoires, so like old medieval texts that say that the fairies will always be able to tell
Mhm.
if you come into their territory with lies or
Yeah.
without a truthful heart. Sorry, I just felt the need to add that because I think it's very important.
Thank you. I could tell you thank you for being moved to speak up for that because that feels very important. And there's something about that that feels like you don't use them. You don't utilize them. It's a two-way street, right? It's a collaboration.
Exactly.
It's a relationship.
Yes,
You don't just come to them when you need them or want to use them, and you don't just break promises because, like
precisely.
any relationship or any connection, there's consequences, whether spiritually or emotionally or whatever it may be, and they should be treated the same.
Yeah, and don't get wanky with it. Don't lose yourself up your own arse when you start thinking like, "Well, I'm special and chosen and all of this because I've got this connection with it." Is this no, no, keep it down to earth.
Yeah.
Keep it about service and relationship, and you'll be right.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like you're really helping me understand how to be a better partner and better relationship with the she for sure. This is very helpful. And I know this is going to be helpful for my listeners that are so curious about this too. And I think
Um,
extended there's something heavy on my heart too as you're talking about this. And I think also relates back to the bigger theme of again what I do for work, but also the movie that this was this inspired this is just trauma. And so the series that I'm doing is it starts with ancestral trauma and then comes into generational trauma and then one-on-one trauma because things don't start in a vacuum. And so thinking about, well, I know I keep saying the she, but then I think there may be some nuance in the language there between she and
yes,
fairies
yes.
and fae folk. So we can certainly talk about that. And I would like to know a bit more about what your knowledge is of what we have what humans have done to them, because I know just humans we're so bad to the land and we're so bad to Mother Nature, and I imagine that has a lot to do with it, and that's I don't know much, and I would love to know more.
So
Mhm.
first of all, with the name of the she, I think the meaning has shifted a bit here. So the she, if we're being very technical about it, refers to a particular noble line of fairy beings descended from the Tuatha who are like godlike Irish beings. These are tall, fair, noble race of beings who once were on the world and then retreated, became invisible or retreated into the world, however you see it, but are still sort of very much around. And then you have other sort of
The image that you
yes,
have.
and not unconnected to what my experience of the she has been, but that came out of so this tarot deck and the work that I've done with the Great Glyph of the She and so on was born out of work that I did with a teacher and author called John Matthews and also his wife Kathleen Matthews. He found this symbol, the great glyph of the Sidhe, this spiral symbol, very much resembles the Reiki symbol, for those of you who know that, that sort of chokure symbol. Yes, exactly that. And we use that as a portal to travel through in journey work. I found myself in this other world with these luminous beings, and it's very much the other world that you might experience, or that you might read about in Irish mythology and folklore and so forth. This verdant, vibrant land of a very fluid and shifting nature. I think I just want to draw a slight difference from strictly reading the mythology, these are the beings of the Sidhe, and my experience of the beings that called themselves the Sidhe, that I wouldn't describe as necessarily a purely Irish experience of that, but rather a universal energy of luminous beings who are guardians of the inner earth, do dwell in this world with us, but just on a very different level, in a very different way, in a very much more fluid but no less powerful way, but that other cultures around the world may have different names for. And I hope I'm not stepping on any toes or offending anybody from the Irish culture there, but my experience of these particular beings was a universal one. And I was calling them the Sidhe for lack of anything better to call them, because that is what they had asked to be called. And I think in a way it's a helpful name, because it's like, okay, we're not talking about Tinkerbell here, guys. We're talking about these tall, powerful, luminous beings as described in the Irish mythology. But there are things that also set them aside as well as being connected to, in my experience, cosmic energy that
Mm,
falls down into the earth, that ensouls the earth, and then is radiated back out into the cosmos. And that connects them to concepts of the world's soul, anima mundi, which connects us to Hecate, the goddess who, in one of her aspects, is world soul. But it also connects us to myths like Lucifer, the fallen angel, and so forth. So, look, some controversial things for those of us who are raised Christian and don't have a full mythological understanding or symbolic understanding of what Lucifer represented. There's a lot there, but those are things that I want people to consider,
sure.
meditate upon, muse upon, the connection between the Sidhe, these great luminous beings, or these sparks of soul and life itself that live in a version of the world untouched by linear time as we perceive it, but rather the world as Grail, the untainted, pure, primal energy of Earth that we can return to renew ourselves. That's my experience of them. By saying that, I am not saying that the mischievous fairy beings that you may encounter in the woods that will steal your pencil, and then it will turn up 3 weeks later exactly where you expected to find it, where it definitely wasn't 3 weeks ago. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because for sure it does. There are many levels and almost a hierarchy within what we call fairy beings. It's much more complex and layered, than can be summarized easily.
Yes, exactly, nuance. And I think you said something a few minutes ago of respecting the sheep by understanding that we can't fully understand. It's
Yeah.
just these things can be true and we just can't fully understand, and that's okay. We can have our own individual experiences and we can try to explain and understand the best we can, but you know what? We just we respect them and understand that they are very complex. Even just reflecting as you were talking about just the nature of the she from like a spiritual perspective and how they radiate and permeate through just life in general and through mother nature in general, and that's a lot of that just resonated so much with me when I feel like I'm really touching something that's greater than myself that I feel like is woven through the fabric of humanity. To me, that sounds so familiar, that light, that spark of light that just really whew.
Let's not underestimate what we are beyond these mortal casques as well, that we
Exactly.
often forget. We're infinite beings,
Exactly.
contained for whatever purpose in these very finite, fragile forms. And having connection with the she can remind us of that, which in many ways is our true nature,
Yeah,
beyond
exactly.
just flesh and blood, you know?
Yeah, we're spiritual beings in human form
For
ourselves.
sure.
You said something interesting. Really loved Fréwaka. Myself and some others that saw this movie thought that maybe we couldn't totally understand the end of the movie because we didn't understand the folklore or we didn't understand the history.
Okay.
And so basically what happens is the ending of the movie, the person who is basically fulfilling their generational promise to go to the She walks out of this dark house to the house under the house, and it's this really bright, beautiful green field, sunny, right?
Hmm.
Luminous. It's very bright, so beautiful. And she's crowned with this beautiful crown. And then there's this horned figure that's standing on the top of this hill. There's other things that are happening too. And I was like, ooh, of course, of my mind coming from a Christian background is I immediately think like the devil because that's just what I'm programmed deep down to always go to. But I'm like, no, 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 this is the wrong, this is the wrong framework.
Wrong with us.
Right, but then you just said, you're bringing in these themes of, like, luminosity, and then somehow Lucifer ties into it, so I'm like, "Ooh, there's something here." So, I guess I'm just curious if maybe you could speak how that ties in. It literally ends with this image of this, like, goat figure, goat
Or like
man.
a goat?
Yes, like, big
Oh, like
horned
Pan then.
Pan. Yes, exactly. I even held up the Pan
Mm.
tarot card at the end of, when I was talking about this in my prior episode. Exactly that, yeah.
Well, those horns represent not only a connection to nature, but also that connection to the higher realms, so above and below. Um, you'll find many representations of sort of pagan nature gods with either with ram's horns, or in British mythology you have Herne the Hunter with the stag horns. The little devil horns that we've got, so used to in sort of more modern Christian iconography are not exclusively connected to the devil. I mean, in terms of Satan or Lucifer or the devil, it's certainly an interesting thing to explore people's ideas of what that is. If you look at the Old Testament, I would suggest the Old Testament God is capable of far more evil than the devil. The devil simply tempts people. The God is smiting people right, left, and center. So what's that
Yeah,
about?
yeah,
It
right?
seems very odd to me that people are like, well, the devil is all of what is evil in humanity. I'm like, the devil's saying, hey, chill out, Jesus, have a snack. And God is turning people into pillars of salt. I'm not sure, regardless. It's not my mythology anymore, but I do find it a bone of contention. In terms of the Lucifer mythology connection to fairy, that is also an Irish mythology connection. So the legend goes, or the myth goes, that when the angels were cast out of heaven, when Lucifer left in his rebellion, many angels followed Lucifer, but many were sort of sucked out in that exodus that were not truly willing to go to hell, and ended up falling into the hollow places in the earth, and they became fairies. But symbolically, that angelic energy, or divine energy, if you like, falling from the heavens into the earth, is a way of telling the story about the world being ensouled, how that soul energy comes from the cosmos, from whatever you want to call God, or from whatever, from the universe, into the earth, into us, into every creature, every plant, every other liminal being that we may not see, and then it is radiated back outwards again from the earth. And so people who work with that Lucifer energy outside of Christianity, that's sort of a very small idea of what they're about, but it's an awakening, ensouling, initiatory energy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that
that
but that sounds that so that sounds like very much like the end of that movie, especially with the crowning. Symbolically, you are now coming into your truth and into connection with the divine in the other world. And I absolutely have to see this film.
yeah, it's amazing. I saw it at a film festival here in New Orleans before it
Mm.
brought theatrical release, so I was like, "Oh my god, I saw it before anybody else. I can't wait for everybody else to see it." And now people are finally starting on Shudder and AMC. Do you have a favorite horror movie?
I I have several favorite horror movies. One more recent one and one an older one. I have so many, but I'm going to go with three. So, because I love the old movies of Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. I love the Roger Corman films and those adaptations of Poe's work. So I would go with Mask of the Red Death or Fall of the House of Usher, one of those classics. Like I will stop anything to watch a Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee movie, any of those. In terms of the 80s and when I grew up, what a very formative one, which is still one of my favorites, is American Werewolf in London.
Okay,
Because I love the mixture of humor and horror. I think that's so important. Again, catharsis. That balance of humor and horror is wonderful. I love a werewolf movie, but I think it's also just the best practical effects still. I think it's the best practical werewolf transformation I've ever seen on screen. It's visceral. It really gets you when he's reaching out right to the camera.
it's amazing.
Powerful. It's like one of my favorite horror movies. And then I really love Cabin in the Woods.
Oh my gosh, that's really good.
So it's just really, really fun. And then the cosmic horror scale of it. Oof. To the fact that they dared at the end to just have this massive god greater than, and this old god that had been kept sleeping. I mean, it's very Lovecraftian. Just comes and just stomps, and that's it. That's the end. Just
Absolutely.
love it. I recently rewatched it with my now adult kid, and I was like, I think you'll enjoy this, and they very much did, and I very much enjoyed the rewatch, and especially in light of these last few years being very involved in Lovecraftian horror and things. I was like, oh yes, people don't talk about this as being a Lovecraftian movie, but it is these ancient ones that are sleeping and that have to be kept asleep,
Yeah,
or the consequences are dire. Loved it, love that
I
movie.
do love that one. I read the short story years ago first, The Midnight Meat Train by Clive Barker, and I
Mm.
watched that movie for the first time, which, well, so I'm sort of spoiling it. I won't spoil it all the way, but it
Oh,
has
you've got to love Clive Barker.
a similar ending, but not exactly. But
Right,
if
because
you
the
like,
Hellraiser movies are incredible, aren't they? That's a whole world that
yeah, oh yeah,
really captured people's imagination.
definitely the ending of Midnight Meat Train. If you like Cabin in the Woods, you'll like The Midnight Meat Train.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that one, so I will definitely seek it out.
Yeah. Well, Emily, I feel like I asked all the questions that I had in my
Well, that's
mind.
wonderful because the light has not yet quite faded here. The sun's
Okay.
gone down, but we're left with this sort of amber and pink skyline and these grey clouds, but it's not actually pissing it down right now. So I think I'm going to get myself off for a walk before it gets dark, if that's okay.
That's
But it's
lovely.
been so lovely talking with you. Thank you for this.
You too. Well, Emily, I have a little tradition on this podcast where I ask people a question just kind of in theme with my podcast. And it goes like this. What demons have you exercised? And it can be really through our discussion or, any of the discussions that we have. So it could be through your acting journey, through your experience of the she, through the tarot. What demons have you exercised? That's a
Hi,
big
you
question.
don't have time for my demons. That's like saying, so just to finish off, what's your trauma? And
No pressure.
like, well, like you, there was a lot of generational stuff that I've had to work on. So let's just talk about. I mean, this in this conversation, we've touched on a lot of things, and let's go back to my poor dead ex and think that where I am now, owning my power and not feeling the need to be weak in terms of accommodating to somebody else or change my shape or strength to fit with somebody else's ideas of what I should be has been my great journey through my creative process.
That's so beautiful, Emily. Wow, look how far you've come, and I don't know you that well, but just for you to stand in your power right now to say, and I think it's always more powerful for someone to say that about themselves. So that's amazing. That's amazing. should be so proud of that journey. Gosh, for me, just
Thank you.
feeling like the demons I've exercised through talking to you today is, I just feel so, more connected with the greater world. I mean, we're connecting you're all the way in the UK, right? You're in the UK?
Yeah, yeah, I am on the very south coast, so Hastings, which is straight down from London. Yeah,
I feel like I'm exercise even more of this isolation, especially in America right now. Yeah, we're a fucking shit show over
yeah,
here, just gonna toss that
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
yeah,
know, I'm so
just
sorry. Hopefully I really hope that it has to, for the sake of the whole world, has to shift soon, right?
absolutely, I hope so, and I think it's my hope that having more conversations like this, connecting with more people that are so just beautiful souls, and being able to exercise a little less of isolation every time and to share this with more people, it just feels like good work from you, and I just so admire you and all your work.
Thank
Really,
you.
truly, truly, thank you so much for everything that you do from writing tarot and books to speaking the way you did today so honestly and the beautiful acting that you do that you fully embody and taking care of yourself after all of it. That's so important too.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for inviting me. It's been a really wonderful conversation, very nourishing. Thank you.
All right, Emily, will you enjoy your
Thank
walk
you.
and the daylight that you have left? Get out there.
Take care, lovely.
Bye. Bye-bye.